Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Own the Moment podcast. My name is TJ Lasig, and I am your host here at OTM. And as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Justin Herzig. Justin, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. We have some true basketball, some true NBA experts on the pod tonight. So for once, I'm going to sit back. I'm not talking numbers. There's no spreadsheets. This is going to be a smooth ride for me. Let them be the smarter people, and I'm just going to enjoy.
Yes, it's going to be a little bit of a different show tonight. Last night, we got heavy into the numbers with regards to Top Shot. This night, we are going to focus strictly on more real-life NBA talk, specifically on Allstar Weekend, and we are going to be doing that with our two guests tonight. So first, I will introduce the man that has joined the OTM team as an NBA analyst. You can find him in the Discord answering everyone's questions when it comes to real-life basketball, Mr. John Bachman. Bach, how are you tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to talk some basketball. The All-Star break's coming up. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff, and Top Shot's rolling out some new features to coincide with that. So I'm really excited to get Brian's perspective on all of this and hear what he knows about Top Shot and see where we can talk some actual basketball edge there.
Yes. And that is a great segue into the special guest of the evening. This is a man that knows actual real-life basketball and is grinding the real-life basketball streets on a daily basis. I see him out there tweeting a lot about my Philadelphia 76ers. I don't know if you noticed, but I've got my Joel Embiid jersey tee on here. I'm going to ask you about that because I've seen lots of Sixers tweets. And, of course, he is the co-host of the NBA podcast and, as I hear, has a baby on the way very, very soon. So, Mr. Bryan Toporek, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. We are excited to have you. We've got some folks joining us in the chat. Yes, the topic of the hour is that there was going to be a Seeing Stars pack drop tonight. That has not happened, unfortunately. So we do not know the details on when the next pack drop is going to be. As far as we know, it's still going to be taking place in two different waves tomorrow, but we'll be waiting to hear more info there. I think we can touch briefly on the past 24 hours since we talked last night, and then we can get in with Brian. So, Justin, is there any updates that you wanted to make sure that we touched on with regards to Seeing Stars, with regards to what we are expecting over the course of the next couple of days regarding pack drops?
Yeah, and so, last night was obviously a fantastic conversation where we really talked about from the analytical stance of, where we saw from market. So to kind of put a bow on that, we did see the OTM 50 over those kind of past 24 hours, ended up making about a 25%, or about 20% 24-hour jump. We've corrected a little, so I think we're looking at around 15% right now, but it's been great to see the excitement that I think has come with the combination between Top Shot NBA releasing the Rising Stars, the sets that are going to accommodate them, as well as the All-Stars, and who knows what else is still to come. And I think that has, re-energized a bit, and people that, hey, when there's interest, I want to put money where my interest is. I'm going to buy more packs. I'm going to buy more, go to the marketplace, buy more moments, and that's what we've really seen. From a tonight standpoint, they identified a bug. Once again, I'm glad that at least it was solved ahead of time rather than people waiting, wasting their nights and stuff. At the end of the day, this was always going to be 3 packs or 3 drops where you're only able to get 1 pack. So we're not missing out on anything. It's just going to go one more day. So tomorrow at noon, tomorrow at 8 p.m., both Eastern time. I think those are what they are scheduled for right now. My recommendation is start in the earlier one. So the better chances of trying to get one. If you get one in the early, fantastic. Don't bother out the nighttime one because you're not going to get another. If not, we'll use it as a consolation and try again. Those are at least the plans right now. We'll pay attention to Top Shot, see if they change anything there. And then other than that, it's Sunday. And Sunday is kind of the big one. That's where we have the actual Rising Stars. That's going to be, I believe, the rare pack. That's where, as long as we stay on Sunday, TJ and I will be back on here on the Own the Moment network to really live stream that drop. Be there for all the thrills of that, the sweats. So exciting couple days. And I think we'll go from there. Let's get to some NBA though. I'm ready.
Yeah, let's do it. Plenty of Top Shot talk to come, but let's jump into Brian here. So Yeah, if we just start from the beginning here, I guess, Bryan, tell the people what you do, talk about your involvement with the Bleacher Report, the NBA podcast, how basically your journey of how you got here today and your work with the NBA.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been with Bleacher Report off and on for more than a decade now. I've been in the role that I am for about 7 years. I'm an editor, not just of their NBA content. I've worked on all sorts of things. So, I've edited the Howard Becks and the Mirren Faders of the world. I worked on the Game of Zones series to, fact check them, check the captions of all that stuff as well. I work on a couple of their other video series as well. We kind of have our hands in everything that BR does, that my team does. So that's my full-time job. On the side, as you guys mentioned, I'm the co-host of the NBA podcast. You can find it wherever podcasts are found. My co-host is in Denmark, actually. So he provides some nice international perspective to the game. And yeah, we record about twice a week whenever possible. As you said, I have a baby on the way soon, so it might be a little more sporadic, but he's got a guest host lined up for while I'm away. So yeah, check that out, subscribe, download. We'd love to have more listeners there. And then I also work as a senior contributor, I think the official title is, at Forbes Sports, where I mostly cover the Philadelphia 76ers and then also salary cap issues, CBA stuff. It would be a busy month for me with the trade deadline coming up. We'll see how much I can pre-write ahead of time. But yeah, check me out there as well.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Make sure you go ahead, follow Bryan on Twitter, check out his podcast. If you go to his profile, he's at B Toporek. So BTOPOREK. And you can find his podcast and all the other fantastic work that he has going on from there. And Bach, I know that you've been listening to Bryan's show a bit. Do you have anything in particular that you wanted to touch on with him? I know you were checking out his recent episodes.
Yeah, I was listening to some of it. I think with it being All-Star Weekend, super excited to talk a little bit about, the All-Star. Bryan, you talked about kind of some of the there's not really a snubs argument this year, or maybe there's a snubs argument for a lot of players this year. But, maybe kind of turning that a little bit. Who are some of the guys that you were really happy to see get in this year that, maybe were on the bubble and you thought was really deserving?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Because really for both conferences, especially in the East, even the argument was like, okay, there's so much talent in the league, we have to expand to 15 players for each conference. And it's like, we're still going to have snubs with 15 guys. Like there's just that much talent in the league. So for those last couple spots in the East, I really thought there were 8, 9, 10 guys legit in the discussion. I'm really happy to see that Zach LaVine got in. I think he's incredibly deserving. The reputation of him as like an empty stats gunner has come from his Minnesota days and his early Chicago days, but he's been hyper efficient this year and he's averaging like 28, 5, and 5 on good shooting percentages. So despite the Bulls being, as mediocre as they have been, I'm glad that coaches recognized his talent, put him in there. Same goes for Nikola Vucevic. I mean, the Magic have just had terrible injury luck this year with, Isaac he got hurt in the bubble and he's going to be out the whole year. Markelle Fultz goes down early with the ACL tear. Cole Anthony gets hurt with the rib injury. So now they just don't really have a point guard other than Michael Carter-Williams. Despite that, Vooch is putting up huge numbers. So was glad to see him in there. And then I just think it's cool that Julius Randle's in as well. I'm glad for that one. It's like a balance of team success because the Knicks are, I think, better than most people would have expected coming into the year. And then also he's got the production to back it up. I think I had a feeling that final spot was going to come down to Randle or Sabonis. Sabonis ended up getting in as the injury replacement, but I have no gripes with the guys that they chose. It's just, again, like, a Trae Young, Chris Middleton, Bam Adebayo, Tobias Harris. You could make cases for all those guys as well. It was just a lot of players having great seasons.
I want to thank you for pumping my bags. You started off 2 for 2 with LaVine and who do we do after that? Vucevic. Yeah. So appreciate that.
Yep.
LaVine, do we think he's a trade candidate? Obviously, not going to lead the Bulls to much this year. But talks that maybe if there's a couple teams in contention that we were talking about that maybe he could be a contender. And I'm thinking from a Top Shot standpoint, like, hey, him putting up those consistent 30-plus games is fantastic, but it kind of has a ceiling cap. If he could be on a championship contender, I think my portfolio would take a nice little bump.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. I think the Bulls want to make the playoffs this year, and trading LaVine is going to be counter to that. So if I'm looking at, Bulls trade candidates, I'm thinking more of the Otto Porter, Garrett Temple, even Thaddeus Young, who's been having a really good season. But I think even he has now moved into this guy might be too important for us this year. We've got him under contract next year. We can revisit that discussion. I think with LaVine in particular, the asking price is just going to be so high that I think the Bulls would listen. I don't think he's in that untouchable tier, but especially given the price that some of these star players have moved for over the past couple of years, not just the Anthony Davis and James Harden, but I really think the Bucks deal for Drew Holiday just totally screwed up trade prices across the league. Like, the Bulls are going to say, okay, Drew Holiday fetched 3 picks, 2 pick swaps, George Hill, Eric Bledsoe, like actual rotation players. Zach LaVine is putting up bigger numbers than Drew Holiday ever did. Drew Holiday is a better two-way player, but Zach LaVine is just better offensively than Drew Holiday. So I think that would be the floor that they would want for a guy like Zach. And I don't know that any team in the middle of this season in particular, given all of the, the COVID weirdness and it's such a condensed schedule, they might be more content to wait till the off season. LaVine's under contract for 1 more year, wait it out, hope the world is more back to normal next year, and you still get a full year of Zach LaVine, and you get a full off season with him too to work him in. It's adding a high usage guy like him in the middle of the season, I think would be tough just from a team chemistry standpoint and like a schematic standpoint, because the schedule is so crunched together. These guys aren't practicing. I think the Sixers have had 2 or 3 practices throughout the entire first half of the season. So you'd have to adjust on the fly during games if you're adding Zach LaVine.
Yeah. Is that why we're seeing superstars kind of, I don't know, their usage go up, like with the Embiid, because the Sixers just aren't having those practices, Embiid just has a better chance to shine and just kind of get that usage?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I think with Embiid in particular, he just came back a totally different player than he has been in past years, and he's been so much more consistent. He's added a lot to his game, especially with the face-up, that has just totally transformed how good he can be, like what his ceiling is. But it's certainly an interesting theory about, is this the reason why we're seeing this many guys having all-star caliber seasons? Because they're like, well, I'm just going to take over for my team every night because we can't trust the 8th man who hasn't really gotten to play more than 10 minutes a night.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you bring up about trading LaVine and the Hall, especially given when you forecast into next season, the free agents that are going to be available. I mean, it's not looking pretty this offseason. And so, to trade for a guy, right, might be harder because, that's the way to acquire talent, and teams that are holding talent like LaVine know that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the 2021 free agent class was supposed to be this star-studded, Giannis, LeBron could be a free agent. Kawhi is still going to be a free agent. Paul George could be a free agent. Drew Holiday still can be, but I think he's probably going to stay in Milwaukee at this point. So Rudy Gobert was supposed to be. So a lot of these guys aren't available now. All of these teams are still going to have the cap space that they were hoarding for the last couple of years to get that type of player. So now it's like, okay, well, who do we spend this money on? We need to get someone ideally. And the other thing with a guy, for a guy like LaVine, I think you want as much certainty as you can get. So you want to wait until the draft lottery to see how that shakes out, instead of saying we're going to trade him for multiple draft picks, including a 2021. You want to know what you're trading for. Is it a top 3 pick? Is it the number 1 pick? Is it, a top 7 protected pick that ends up sliding to number 14? That makes a huge difference in terms of the value you're actually getting in return. So I would be surprised if LaVine moves by the deadline, but I'm not ruling out entirely.
So who is moving?
Good question. I think Victor Oladipo is probably the biggest name. And I think he's more name than production at this point. But I mean, the Rockets are just in such a weird place, right? They've lost 13 straight games. It coincided. Christian Wood had a great start to the season. We recorded a podcast in early February or late January, early February, where we did some early All-Star picks. I had him as an All-Star, but then I added the caveat, like, I know this guy just got hurt. He's about to fall out of the race. So I was giving him his flowers when I could. But yeah, since he went down, the Rockets have just been in a total tailspin. You know, Oladipo is a free agent this summer. They have to decide, do we want to give this guy a 4-year deal worth $90 million, $100 million, even more than that, given his injury history? He had the one really great season in Indiana. Was that the outlier? Can we bank on him moving forward? So I think given his age, his injury history, his shooting percentages this year, the Rockets would be smart to at least shop around. There's been a lot of smoke around, you know, Victor Oladipo wants to go to Miami. So if that's the case, if they think they're going to lose him, might as well get something for him now before losing him for nothing this summer.
Bachman, I have a question for you.
Please.
You had an idea that you were tinkering on about how to take advantage of this trade deadline with Top Shots. I know it's kind of a half-baked idea, but do you want to kind of just talk about what your thought process there was and how we can kind of, provide some strategy insight?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in general, I think the basis of my theory is, especially for some of these lower name players, any news is good news, right? And I know we were all, when Kevin Porter Jr. got benched, it was like right around the time we were starting on Top Shot, and all the rumors about him getting moved. It's like, I want to be in on Kevin Porter Jr. before he gets moved, because even though he might not play on his next team, being in the news, people are going to think about him. He'll come top of mind. I think, beyond that, obviously, getting players to playoff teams where they're going to be more in the national spotlight, even if they're role players. JJ Redick's a guy who I really wish had a bunch of moments out there so I could go buy them all up, because I think he's going to move to a contender. I think he's going to help a contender. And I think, people are going to start remembering that JJ Redick is, pretty good at basketball, or he's shooting the basketball. So I think in general, those guys, and then, on the inverse of that, when you get teams that are kind of tanking a little bit and building for the future, and you get guys who have a lot of upside but haven't been able to shine because they're on better teams, the idea that they can go to a bigger roster and get more playing time, get more counting stats, have people see. So, in general, I'm trying to target guys who I think are pretty likely to move, especially to either playoff teams or much higher usage situations.
Yep. And I think you brought up a really good point when we were chatting. So now that a lot of these commons are going to be out of 25,000, we've even seen 35,000. Like there's a lot of them out there. So their prices probably for the players that aren't the superstars are going to be pretty low. However, if a player gets traded, I believe their circulation count stops increasing.
That's right.
Which means that if they only have 13,000 in the marketplace to start off, maybe 15, whatever it is, because that player has now changed to another team, they will stop that minting. So I think you get that additional level of scarcity if you can predict who's going to get moved beforehand. Yes, you might get that hype bump. Yes, you might get the better team or more usage bump. But I think from an actual circulation count and supply and demand, I think that's probably a huge opportunity where if I can get someone that then, instead of that 25,000, it becomes an 8,000, a 12,000, whatever it would end up being, I think that's an opportunity that I'm really interested in.
For sure. And I think we got to keep an eye on like what the mint counts look like on Top Shot Explorer, on CryptoSlam, when those cards are getting minted, so we can see if, they're releasing packs with those guys before the mints get comparable to other players. But yeah, I think, that happened with Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert, right? They got capped at 5,000 because that's how many had been minted before they were traded. And, now they ended up, a third as scarce as all the other players who they were intended to be on the same tier as when they started the series. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think an interesting analysis for us to do at some point would be seeing, we have this theory, and I completely agree with what Bach said, that any news is good news, and that when somebody gets traded, it's highly likely that their volume is going to increase on the site. I would love for us to post trade deadline do a little bit of a retroactive analysis on if that actually held true. I know that we've made some plays on that in the past with like Derrick Rose getting moved. So I'm curious to see if that does actually play out, and will just be a fun time around the NBA to see what shakes out with the trade deadline. And then, so Bryan, I think another thing related with the NBA and Top Shot right now, and the big news that came out this week is around the Rising Stars game. So the NBA unable, unfortunately, to have that game. Although I think we all think the USA team would have just absolutely crushed if that was a real game. They seem pretty stacked with talent. But so instead, we were very pleasantly surprised to see the NBA come out with this. Well, instead of having the game, we are going to be releasing Top Shot moments of all of these players. So just curious from your perspective in general, like how much have you heard about Top Shot? How much, if at all, is Top Shot starting to come into daily conversations that you're having? And just interested, right? We're coming at this from a pure Top Shot perspective, but somebody who's been around the NBA for a while, how much has Top Shot really leaked into these conversations thus far?
I feel like within the past month or two, it's really seen a huge boom among just like overall basketball fans, their awareness of it. I think before a month or two ago, it was more like, I've heard of this, but I haven't devoted the time to actually explore what it is. I think now everyone knows what it is. There are still some holdouts that are like, this is stupid, I don't get it. And, you're not going to convert everyone. But I think everyone's at least aware. ESPN and The Athletic had articles kind of like, what is NBA Top Shot? And we at Bleacher Report, and my guy Sean Hyken wrote a really good piece a couple days after those that I think it's the best piece from a national perspective that I've seen so far about what Top Shot is, why people are investing in it. He spoke to a couple of like the major DFS guys who are really going gung-ho on it. So yeah, I mean, I think it really has seeped into the national consciousness in terms of overall basketball fans.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
I'm excited to see what the NBA is going to kind of push for this, because I think we've known going back that the NBA is a partner. Kind of initially, I was thinking it was more like a silent partner, like the Players Association has a bit more active role because they actually have to review all the moments before they get minted and accepted and such. And I was considering, the NBA was just like, okay, well, we'll do this because we'll make some pennies, we'll make some dollars on it and do it from like a licensing standpoint. I don't think that's the case. And whether or not it was a chicken or the egg, like from everything I've heard, like they're not paying these NBA players who have shown interest. They're, obviously gifting them some packs and stuff and level of engagement there. But like this is a lot of just organic, interest. And so I think the NBA, whether they've done it because the players started doing it as well and they feel like this is an opportunity, but the partnership for the release of the Rising Stars, like that's a big deal because that's a normal NBA announcement. Normally NBA wants to own those airwaves. They want to announce that on a TV show. They want to announce it in conjunction with something where they're going to have some kind of either media or merchandise splits for it. But like giving that honor, giving that opportunity to Top Shot, I think is huge. And I think that signals that we're going to see a lot more active engagement between the two going forward. And whether it is with the announcers and ripping, the packs live during NBA broadcast, whether it is, the just continued references. I love. And I know this is like the NBA, it's the players, but I think it was Terry Rozier and maybe it was Josh Hart. Someone else was doing like, hey, instead of a jersey switch, let's do the moment swap. And just such cool aspects there. And whether it is a bottoms up with the players or top down with the NBA, like you can tell you're getting that entire kind of combo.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's mutually beneficial for the players and the NBA from a financial perspective. And we have to remember they've lost a lot of money over the last year, the last 2 seasons, really, between, not having fans at all, having to scrap 10 regular season games last year, 10 regular season games this year. Woj, like in the midst of pre-bubble, was reporting all these doomsday figures about like this is like 40% of the revenue that they're going to lose next year if they don't have any fans. Now we're seeing that more and more stadiums are going to start to let a limited number of fans back. So I don't think we have the full doomsday scenario, but yes, I think the NBA has a financial stake in this and they want to see this thing grow so they can, offset some of these revenue losses as well. And I think Mark Cuban was saying, I think it was Mark Cuban, it was like, this is going to be one of the big revenue drivers for us within the next couple of years. Like, we really think this thing has the potential to have explosive growth. And I think, from the player's perspective, you got to keep in mind a lot of these guys are in their early or mid 20s. So it's, people of our generation. It's not like I'm talking to, Charles Barkley and Shaq about this, where they're just, they don't even want to be on Twitter. These guys are extremely online. And this year in particular, when you're on the road, you're locked in your room. It's not like you can go out and explore cities, go to dinner with teammates, go clubbing, whatever. Like, you're stuck in your hotel room. So you probably have a lot more free time on your hands as an NBA player than you ever have before. If you hear from a teammate, hey, like, have you heard of this thing? It's pretty cool. I've made a profit off of it so far. I think it's going to continue growing. I totally see why the players are getting involved. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a pressure thing from Adam Silver in the league. It's more just organic growth.
I feel like watching Hubie Brown open a pack on live TV will be one of my favorite things.
I mean, oh my God, just imagine like Barkley or something trying to like reacting to these packs being open. Like what am I looking like? I'm not even going to try, but yeah, it would just be fantastic from an
Brian, have you seen a pack being open yet?
I have seen one.
Good.
Yeah. But yes, it would be super funny to see some of these old guys.
Because I think, just a tease, I think we might get Bach to rip open a pack at the end of the stream. Because I haven't got to open a pack. I haven't got to open a pack in like 5 weeks. I think I've missed on the last 5 drops. The last one I got was a cool cat, and I'm just itching to open a pack today. There it is.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was an intentional tease or not, because I was figuring that. I don't have a pack, but someone's got to open a pack at the end of this stream. That's for sure.
Hey, packs tonight for the drop, but Bach's been saving this.
Yeah. I'm curious how much. I don't know. Maybe I'm overestimating, but I feel like we're going to get a good amount of Top Shot chatter over the course of this All-Star weekend between the dunk contest and the actual game itself. Obviously, the Rising Stars games is solely focused on that, so I'm definitely curious to see how that goes. You think we're going to see the same thing, Justin? A lot of chatter about this. I feel like prior to the Rising Stars things, I thought that it would get thrown in, but now I'm starting to feel like they just want to start. We've talked a lot about how they haven't marketed yet. They haven't done any marketing, and I feel like they're starting to ramp up towards more active marketing. Would you agree with that?
I agree, and I think 3 months ago they had All-Star Weekend circled on their calendars, and they expected, I think, that All-Star Weekend was going to be their coming out and their kind of big push. Jonathan Bales decided, nope, that's not the case, and we're going to do it January 15th or whatever instead. But like, there's no question that they've had this day circled. We've heard the Roham do whispers about it over the past month or so. They've already come out pretty big with these 2 sets. And I don't think we're done there from a Top Shot standpoint. From the players NBA, like, obviously someone's going to the dunk contest going to say Top Shot that. Like, it has to happen, whether it's a judge, whether it's a commentator, whether it's the actual player, like, it's going to happen. And I don't know. I'm all for it. I think it's just more excitement. I think it's interesting. The people, there's been waves. And so before January 15th, the people who were in it were predominantly on the crypto side, and they were most likely long-term adopters in NFTs. Then you get people on that January 15th where, okay, maybe there's people who were, from the DFS, the fantasy sports, maybe hardcore NBA, people who were probably collectors, but also saw kind of an investing opportunity. Then, as that hype kind of grew, we started seeing a lot more of the kind of people who thought they could get a quick buck, people who thought like, hey, this is just Bitcoin 2.0, like everyone's just making money. All I got to do is join and I'm making money to the moon. I think this new wave is now going to be those more casual NBA fans. It's going to be the ones who we see like, okay, they didn't know that much about it, but now they see their favorite player talking about it. They see it being talked about on TV. It's just from hey, now I'm actually an enjoyment in the, I'm not doing this because I think I'm going to make a ton of money. I may not throw that much money in, at least to begin with, but I enjoy it as a fan. And those are probably some of the most valuable long-term collectors. And so I think this will be very valuable for the ecosystem. What happens starting at this All-Star game, and I think continuing through the end of the year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the more we get folks in here that are truly loving the NBA, loving the product, and not just expecting to come in, get a pack, and make $100 and then complain about the website. Like, those people will come and go. We want the people that are here to stay, that are here because they enjoy the product, enjoy the experience, and I know that's the way that we've all felt. And I mean, I personally definitely enjoy the NBA, but I haven't been historically a massive NBA fan. But this has definitely piqued my interest more in the NBA, and I feel like I'm checking box scores more often than I typically would have. And so I think that there's another element there too of something like Top Shot can get people in the same way with like fantasy football, right? A lot of people maybe aren't necessarily NFL fans, but they got into the NFL because of fantasy football. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Top Shot could potentially do that for the NBA, where they bring in more fans that are going to become actual basketball fans, and they get into it because of the origination of Top Shot.
Do we get a red zone channel for NBA on a weeknight now? Because the reason why red zone was created, because people wanted the action for their fantasy team. They wanted to be able to see the plays. They want to see the scoring, and it was the perfect culmination. NBA fantasy never really caught on for outside like the hardcore, because you got to do it. For the most part, it's a nightly thing, maybe a weekly league, but it's pretty hardcore. This now, I think maybe it's going to lead to that level of engagement. A lot of people are saying I didn't watch NBA. I haven't watched NBA in 10 years or so for whatever reason, but I want to see how my players are doing. I want to see how my moments are. I want to kind of keep tabs. And yes, right now, most people aren't going to have the NBA package. They're watching all the games and stuff, but whether it be some form, I think that'd be a great addition, and I would definitely watch it with my portfolio being kind of a driving factor.
So what about yourself, Brian? Where are you at with your Top Shot experience? Do you have any Top Shots? Have you ever bought anything, opened a pack? Do you have an account? What's your stance here, and what's your plan on your involvement in the future with Top Shot?
Yeah, I have an account. I started it today, one of these.
All right.
So
all right.
I have not gotten a pack yet. I signed up in advance of this supposed drop tonight. So that was my first real Top Shot experience, was a delayed pack, which sounds like a rite of passage. I feel like I'm finally in the community now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be trying, I guess, tomorrow for these couple drops, and we'll see what happens. With a baby on the way, I don't know if I'm going to be spending a couple grand on any moments anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm intrigued by this. I don't think this is just a fad based on kind of the passion I'm seeing around it. I don't think it's going to fade away in the next 1 or 2 months. I'm sure there will be some kind of cycles of more interest, less interest, especially as the user base grows, as the number of card, or do you call them cards?
Moments. When you call them cards, we have to drink. So, card.
All right.
Yeah, Justin used to say cards every time, and then we kind of broke him of that habit. So he says moments now.
Okay.
A lot of people do say cards. It's
well, because that's I feel like that's the easiest. I'm trying to explain to my wife what this is, and because there's no one sentence summary of this, but I feel like digital traded cards is the easiest way to explain it to someone who just have no idea, has never heard of this thing before. Yeah. So moments, yeah, I can't say I'm going to be dropping a couple grand, but I'm certainly intrigued, and I'll wait with the rest of you in these queues this weekend. I'm excited for that.
So I know your co-host Mort isn't the biggest into Top Shot, but I think if you're able to get a pack this weekend, you got to rip it open live on your show for one of your pods. Show him the excitement, get him really in, and it'll be interesting just to kind of see a more old school NBA guy see their take.
Yeah, I'm trying to work them over. We'll see. There's definitely some resistance on that end, but again, as this thing grows, I think even the biggest skeptics are going to have to say, okay, this is not just like a pump and dump scheme. This is, people are actually invested in this, not just to turn a quick buck, but to because I want my favorite Joel Embiid dunking on Rudy Gobert moment.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I'm most excited about, is for when we can start to have this be a little bit, we can bring the masses in, and it becomes a collect your favorite guys as opposed to what it is right now. So I think, obviously there's a long way to go in terms of how easy it is to get a pack, how easy it is to get moments, but you've just got such a wide variety of collectors out there who just want their 76ers or whatever team Justin roots for.
Justin just picks whatever team's doing well and then claims that he roots for them. I mean, he did it with the Buccaneers. He did it with...
Just keep naming all the Tampa teams, and you're going to get there eventually, right? Yeah, the Buccaneers, the Lightning, the Rays. I guess maybe the Raptors right now because they're playing in Tampa.
Yeah, they're on the upswing after a slow start.
There you go. It's that warm weather. We got it.
So, Brian, what is your kind of expectation for this weekend? I know we've got kind of a condensed schedule, which will be interesting, but honestly, kind of cool too to see it all on one night, right? Just park in front of the TV for like 5 hours and watch it all. But what's your expectation for kind of the events this weekend? What are you excited to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be super. Like the All-Star game last year, I don't know if you guys watched it or like how many people watched it on the stream, but like it was actually really fun because they kind of changed the format where the winner of each quarter gets to I think it was like $100,000 to charity. They put in the Elam ending where there's a target score in the fourth quarter. And it just made the game more competitive. Like the last 2 minutes of every quarter, they actually started playing defense. And like you could tell these guys genuinely wanted to win, which you just haven't seen in All-Star games in years past. So I'm very excited for the All-Star game itself. They had the draft earlier tonight. And you're watching it at first, it's like, oh man, Team LeBron's going to crush Team KD because KD, of course, chose Kyrie with his number one pick and let LeBron get Giannis and Steph Curry, which is like, good luck beating that trio. But then as the draft goes on, all of a sudden Durant is just drafting a ton of really hyper elite scorers. You have Kyrie, Kawhi, Joel Embiid, Bradley Beal, Dame Lillard, Harden, Booker, Zion, who's going to be a monster in this type of format. So I think it's going to be a pretty even game overall. Like it's Team Durant is just a ton of scorers. Team LeBron has just the world's best collection of passers between him, Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Chris Paul, Ben Simmons, Sabonis. So I guess the question is, do they just pass too much and they don't have a score? Like Damian Lillard might score 50 points just because he's the go-to guy on this team. So I think I'm most excited for the All-Star game itself. But look, the NBA knows how to put on a great show every year with the All-Star Weekend. I expect no different this year. And as you said, Buck, I'm excited to see it all in one day. I wonder if this forced innovation makes them adapt this format moving forward, because I know a lot of these guys, All-Star Weekend is super busy for them. It's not just they're going to the game and like staying in their hotel room. That's what they're doing this year because of the pandemic. But, everyone's hosting their own party, sponsor event, all that stuff. I'm sure these guys would love to have a couple days off where they can just go enjoy the city where the All-Star game is and then roll up Sunday night, do their event and get out of there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'm most excited about is just the collection of talent in the three-point competition this year, because it's all all-stars. Like I looked at that list and I was just, my mind was blown. Like, I mean, you've got four of the best shooters in the league out there for sure. And, Tatum and Brown are guys I don't put quite in that tier, but yeah, I mean, it's super exciting from that perspective.
Yeah, Top Shot will be busy with moments from this weekend. I'll say that much.
For sure.
Is there any chance that there's going to have like players mic'd up? I'm trying to think. I remember like in past years, they'll do like player interviews during the game, but not mic'd up. And I asked that so first off, it was Damian Lee that did the Terry Rozier swap. The Josh Hart thing was Josh Hart had a quote that he goes, I don't know why. For some reason, a lot of effing moments are against the Pelicans. We played the Jazz. I think Gobert's getting into it. He had a dunk. It wasn't on me, but I was in the general vicinity, and he knows I do a top shot. So he looked at me while we were running back, and he's like, there's a top shot moment right there. And I was like, fuck you. So if we could get that like mic'd up during the All-Star game, that gets my blood. Oof.
I don't know what the plans are, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get, especially because there are no fans in attendance. So you can, even just a normal NBA game this year, you can hear a lot more trash talking than usual. So yeah, I'm sure we'll hear some of that chatter either way.
I love it.
Yeah, it should be fun, fun to watch. Obviously, we touched briefly on the Rising Stars stuff earlier. Won't be able to see that game, but one of the hottest topics in the Top Shot world is around the rookies, right? Specifically, the rookies from this year. So with the way it works in Top Shot, similar to with physical cards, any moment that is from their rookie year will get a special tag or badge, as they're calling it. Those moments do not currently have those in Top Shot, but they will be coming. And so as a result of that, we've been trying to dive deep into the rookie pool. And so just, kind of curious your take on the pool of rookies this year, both the top end and maybe some of the sleepers. And Justin, I don't know if you had any specific rookies that you wanted to make sure we asked Bryan about.
Yeah, let's start with that. I mean, I'm just curious. Obviously, we know about some of the best players like, Wiseman, Edwards, LaMelo. And so definitely want your take in general. But what we see is that there is a premium for these rookies in Top Shot. And a lot of that's because of hope of their upside. But without a doubt, rookies fizzle out. And some of these rookies, we're not going to remember their name in 3-4 years. So I guess I'm curious, which rookies do you think of the ones that maybe were drafted kind of high? I don't want to say bad, but maybe are underperforming in your view, long term? And then where do you think the value is? So which ones do you know are underrated?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm going to turn this question on you guys quickly because I want to know, what's Tyrese Halliburton's market like? Is he in that LaMelo tier?
LaMelo's his own tier. LaMelo's going for 4,000. I think Halliburton's pretty clearly number 2. If he's not, then I think Edwards, Wiseman are right behind him, and Halliburton's probably around I'm guessing 1,700-1,800.
Yeah, LaMelo's number 1, Halliburton's number 2, and then Wiseman and Edwards are pretty tied for not too far behind Halliburton in terms of their pricing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that sounds right just based on how they're performing as rookies, and that stack it up in the rookie of the year race. I think LaMelo is clearly number 1 with a bullet. I think Halliburton probably has number 2 locked up at this point. Edwards, I don't want to say he's going to bust by any means because he's on just such a bad team. It's hard to really get a sense of where his career trajectory is. But I think given the state of that team and kind of how they've just wasted talent year after year, the crowded state of their backcourt with D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Edwards, Ricky Rubio, at least for the next 2 years, I think there will probably be some buy low moments for him. Again, not to say that he's going to be out of the league in 3 years, but I wouldn't necessarily prioritize him if he's in that tier with Halliburton and Wiseman. I would definitely say those 2 guys would be the better bet. I'm guessing Emmanuel Quickley is also among the favorites in the rookie class.
He doesn't have any moments yet, but when he does, people are ready. Obviously, ignore all the puns and stuff for how quickly they're going to be purchasing them, but he's going to skyrocket. I think he'll probably be right behind Halliburton, but it's going to be damn close.
Yeah. I mean, I would guess if Top Shot works at least the way that the actual NBA does, there's just going to be a premium on any player that plays for the Lakers or the Knicks in general. And the fact that Quickley has been this good, especially where they got him at number 25, I don't think anyone expected him to make this much of an immediate impact. So he's definitely a guy I would keep an eye out for. I'm guessing there aren't many Tyrese Maxey moments yet, but he had he's not going to play much this year. He played early on for the Sixers when half their team was out with COVID contact tracing. He's since kind of gotten buried on the bench, and his trademark moment would probably just be one of his many floaters. But I think he's got a lot of upside moving forward. The Sixers are super high on him. I was in the presser after the draft, and Daryl Morey was just raving about him. He's like, we could not believe this kid fell to number 21. So he's someone to keep an eye out for longer term, I think. Same with Kyra Lewis, the Pelicans. Again, probably not a ton of moments out there, if any, and he's not playing a ton this year. But all the trade rumors that came out earlier this season with the Pelicans, they were saying we're ready to move on from JJ Redick in particular because he's an expiring contract and he's 36. There's no place for him long term. Lonzo Ball is playing much better in the last month, so they may not be as willing to move on from him. But it sounded like they were trying to get rid of some of their older guys, Eric Bledsoe as well, to make room for their younger guys. So he's someone who it sounds like they're also very high on, and especially playing with Zion, I wouldn't shock me if there's just like an inflation. You are teammates with Zion, therefore your moments go up in interest.
Yeah, no, that resonates. The people on this pod, the NoTam family, are all big Kyra fans. And I think when we started seeing him play more down the stretch in like the close games and keeping Lonzo a little off the court, I think that's when we were a little more optimistic that they would make that trade. It seems like Lonzo, though, has kind of gotten his play, a little more of that placeholder back. So we'll see. But either way, yeah, I think the future for Kyra is fantastic. And so just real quick for the people on the stream, some prices for you're going with. So Kyra is going for a little under 300 right now. Tyrese Maxey is at 385. Let's see, we have Wiseman and Edwards both around 1350. Those are, and then Halliburton was 1700, and LaMelo is, I believe, around 4200. Yeah.
What about from Nick in the chat? I think this is someone I'm curious about as well. Any thoughts on Cole Anthony? I know he's been hurt, but any thoughts on his longer term potential?
Yeah, that's a great shout, Nick. I like him a lot too. I think that Magic team is also in such a weird place right now. So with all of their injuries, and then like Aaron Gordon has been on the trade block for the last 4 or 5 years, it feels like they just have a super crowded front court, and you just don't really know what the long-term plan is. Every year it's like, oh, this is the year they should finally trade away their guys and rebuild. And then they don't. They're like content to just stay in that number 8 seed mix. So it sounds like they're going to do it again. They know they're like chalking up all these injuries, and they're just saying, okay, we'll roll it back next year. But I think long-term, he's got a lot of upside next to Markelle Fultz. I think the two guys can play off each other well. They could start together. Markelle, God willing, that shot will come back at some point, but he might just never be the prospect that he was coming out of Washington. So having a secondary ball handler in that backcourt, I think, it sounds like that's their plan moving forward. Like, I don't think Evan Fournier is long for that team. Maybe they re-sign him just to trade him later, but I think the long-term plan is Markelle and Cole Anthony. So yeah, I think probably a good way to approach all of this is also just look at who's been hyped coming into college. Even like Cole Anthony was super hyped coming into college, had a disappointing year at UNC, and that contributed to his draft day slide a bit. But before he got hurt, I think a lot of teams probably in that 8 to 14 mix were looking at him and were like, oh, did we make a mistake not having him higher on our board?
Yeah, let's take a look. So, rather wrong one. Nick also. So from Miami Heat standpoint, I think there's a combination of interesting topics here. First, Kendrick Nunn last year was looking great, playing a significant role. His utilization, his efficiency was pretty strong. And then he kind of just disappeared. And obviously they've got a lot of young core that they've built around. I know Precious is just a great addition. What do we think about the Heat and kind of all these just rotation of young players? And of course, Tyler Hero, I don't know if you know, is a marketing kind of partnership with Top Shot. So all of his moments just skyrocket and people love him.
Yeah, I think the Heat are going to be go back to what you guys were saying earlier in terms of, these guys, once they get traded, their value freezes, or their set freezes. The Heat have long been rumored in that third star mix. Like if the Wizards are ever willing to move off of Bradley Beal, the Heat are known to have interest. Going back to Victor Oladipo, if the Rockets are willing to move him now and the Heat say, we'll take him so we can get his bird rights and make it easier to get him in this summer, that's an option. Kendrick Nunn this year had a pretty slow start, but has really turned it on as of late. So he and Duncan Robinson are both restricted free agents this summer. I don't know if Miami is going to be able to afford bringing in a star free agent like Oladipo, re-signing Duncan Robinson, who's probably going to get 4 years, $80 million at least, just based on what Joe Harris got last year, and then also have to worry about Kendrick Nunn. So him and Precious Achiuwa is in the same boat. If they're going after someone like a Kyle Lowry even, or a Beal, a Zach LaVine, they're going to have to give up a lot of these kids. So they might be a good place to target because you think that's going to increase the scarcity of that set. But also Miami's just a really good team and great in terms of their player development, their culture. Like if I'm going to bet on which guys are actually going to live up to their ceilings, there are a few teams in the league that I'd rather bet on than Miami in that regard.
Are people going to remember that they made it to the finals last year?
And it's like they get no credit for just having their entire team wiped out for 3 weeks by COVID this year. And I'm looking at the standings, and I was going over it the other day, and I'm like, one of the Sixers, Nets, Bucks, Celtics, Heat, Raptors, or Pacers, one of those teams is going to be in the play-in tournament. Like, they're not even going to be guaranteed a playoff spot. So the number, the 2 through 7 it's really important to get that number 1 seed so you can avoid one of those teams in the first round, because we could be looking at like a Nets Heat series in the first round of the playoffs, which sounds brutal.
It's crazy.
I mean, great from a basketball perspective, but brutal for the 1 seed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Sixers are like barely clinging to it right now, and they have the Nets breathing down their necks. And it's not to say that whoever gets the 8th seed, whether it's like the Knicks or the Hawks or whatever, not to say there'll be a pushover, but I think especially if the Pacers are the 7 and they're getting back Karis LeVert in the second half of the season, we don't know if TJ Warren's coming back, but hopefully he's back by the playoffs as well. I would not want to face that Pacers team in the first round either.
Let me pivot to a guy who I know in the moment really loves. Jokic should be winning the MVP, going away on all the advanced metrics. Unfortunately, they're just not that good. What are your thoughts on kind of like the Nuggets situation as a whole, and can they get better at the trade deadline this year to kind of make a run and put Jokic in the MVP lead he deserves?
Yeah, well, I think it's Jokic and Embiid should be 1 and 2 in the MVP mix already. I think the LeBron MVP narrative is really starting to catch steam in early February. Then AD gets hurt, and it has just completely derailed since. Like, the Clutch Mafia at ESPN, unfortunately, has not been able to parrot that line recently. So, yeah, I think Embiid, Jokic, regardless of, there are a lot of other deserving candidates too, but those 2 guys I think are in a class of their own so far. And yeah, I mean, I think you said it well, Bach. It's, if the Nuggets were a top 4 seed, Jokic would probably be the MVP right now. That is Joel Embiid's, as good as Joel Embiid has played this year, the number 1 argument against Jokic is they're the 7th seed in the West and the Sixers are the number 1 seed in the East. If that were flipped, Jokic would be MVP. I don't even know if Embiid would be top 2 at that point, despite how good he's been. So I think if you're a Nuggets fan, you're certainly hoping the second half of the season is kinder to you. Jamal Murray started off, I don't want to say slow. I mean, it's still pretty good, but we've seen over the last few weeks, he's really gotten back into being like bubble version of Jamal Murray, where he's just going a threat to go off at 30 points in a given night. Michael Porter Jr. is obviously the big wild card for that team. You just don't know what you're going to get out of him on a given night. I mean, he is the ultimate X factor, not only for the Nuggets, probably the entire league, where if this kid hits his ceiling, both from a Nuggets perspective and a Top Shot perspective, like, he's a guy who high upside, high risk, because he could just totally bust, or like with the, he's got a history of back injury as well. So there's a chance that he just never hits that ceiling. But if he does, he has that superstar upside to be the 3rd star for the Nuggets and take that team, back to the Western Conference Finals or even further. So I'm optimistic about the Nuggets in the second half of the season. I do think they're going to cement themselves in that tier with at least the Phoenix Suns, where maybe they aren't, a clear top 3 seed, even though the Suns are even in that mix with the Lakers and Clippers right now. But the Nuggets, I don't think they're a play-in tournament type team. I think they are a solid playoff team in the West, and they'll show that over the second half of the season.
That's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. This has been fantastic. Hey, Brian, just want to say, the NBA knowledge that you provided has been severely lacking by my co-host and I through these. So first off, thank you for that. Bachman, always love your insights, and the work that you've done in the Discord channel has been fantastic. For other people that, are more asking the NBA questions, Bach is always there to kind of give his more research, data definitely backed approach, but also watching that tape. And I do want to say, Bach, I know we're coming up on an hour. Should we rip?
Time.
Oh, All right.
I think it is time.
I'm really
Bach.
excited.
So you're going to
teach them, teach?
Yeah, you're going to hit share.
Share.
You're going to hit share screen. And then you got to make sure that you go all the way to the right and hit the Chrome tab. And then in the bottom left, you got to check the share audio so that people can hear the packs.
Got it. All right. Let's see if we can pull this off.
We have learned
guys
our
see it?
lessons.
Yep.
Yes,
I've
we
got
can
you
see
added
it.
to stream.
All right.
What
Let's
are we
see
opening
happens.
here?
That's the only one I got, unfortunately. Series 2, Release 15.
Okay. So this is post most of the rookies, but
That's right.
I would guess.
Can you guys hear it?
Oh, yeah.
We hear it.
All right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, look at that cereal.
Good mint.
Oh, wow.
Oh!
Wow.
That's a nice pull. That's a great pull.
Yeah.
It's been sitting in his pack.
Wow.
That's a $400 lowest ask. You add in that cereal, that's looking like something you could probably get about 1.82x out of for that. So nice $600-800 on your $9 investment box. You want to give let's give TJ the next one. He can keep this.
Very nice.
Yeah, right.
Very nice.
See, what do we got? Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Crossover. Oh, fancy. All right, and the last one. Oh, is this our boy? Oh, PJ. I was really hoping for a Levine there.
That would have been special. Still about 2 players. You know, hey, Siakam's really not that bad either. But that Luka is the shining moment of there. Well done. That's go have a drink. Take a nice $700-800 off the table right there. Congrats. I can't believe that's just sitting in your account. You didn't know for the past few weeks.
That's a top notch pit pull right there. I mean,
That's right.
Love that. Good deal. Well, yeah, we're coming up on an hour here. I think we've touched on it all. Had a ton of NBA knowledge dropped to us from Bryan. So Bryan, we'll kick it to you one last time. Any final thoughts? And please tell the people where they can find you and follow you on social media and all of those fun things.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Toporek, BTOPOREK. You can find my podcast wherever podcasts are found. It's called the NBA Podcast. Strangely, the only NBA-related podcast out there. You would think there'd be more. You can also find me at Forbes Sports, where I'm writing about the Sixers and salary cap stuff. I also dabble at Fansided. I just wrote a piece today over there about Ben Simmons' case for Defensive Player of the Year, which I tried to be fair, especially after the Jazz game last night. But so give me a follow there as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryan, very much for the show. Any final thoughts from Bach or from Justin before we close things off? Bach, we'll go to you first.
No, just excited for All-Star Game weekend. Let's get some pack drops. Let's have everyone pull some great moments, and let's talk some NBA.
Justin.
Good luck, everyone, tomorrow in getting those packs. And then, assuming things go smoothly, we will see you all Sunday for a live pack sweat where TJ and I will be talking all things NBA, All-Star Weekend, whatever's going on, packs on packs on packs. And we might bring a couple of guests and some friends and family onto the show as well. So looking forward to have everyone there.
All right. Awesome show, guys. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Please, if you enjoyed the show, go ahead, hit that thumbs up button. Leave us a review in the, I guess I was going to say the Apple Store, but any of the podcast stores, wherever you are listening to this. And with that said, on behalf of Justin, on behalf of Bach, on behalf of Producer Coop behind the scenes, and on behalf of our special guest, Bryan Toporek, I am TJ Lasig, and we will see you guys next time.